But Stephen A. and Skip Bayless are more or less the same person.
I would agree with that.
It's just that the network invented or capitalized on this racial dynamic
Yeah.
so that they would each be playing sort of to different audiences, and that they would each, and I don't think ESPN would ever admit this. My guess, just speculating, is that they knew that each party would play into the prejudices and sense of antagonism. So like white viewers would kind of recoil at Stephen A's shtick and go, "Oh my God, that's very black for me," thinking that that's black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though Stephen A is just very animated. I should say
Sure.
I'm also a fan of Stephen A's too. I mean, the guy's fucking entertaining.
Yeah, and even though I'm probably going to end up defending Stephen A, I am not really a fan at all.
Right. Interesting. He is a fantastic podcaster, solo podcaster.
Yeah.
I don't like his show. I think First Take is bullshit. I think all he does is bluster, and it's like not even entertaining and funny. He seems like he's going through the motions. It's like a Vegas routine. I don't
Mhm.
believe it at all. But I think his podcast is it, and will be around for a long time. But
once again, sports talk radio.
Mm-hmm. But he's
do a lot of hard hours by yourself in a room. You figure it out.
And he's honed that craft to a T. So I think that they contrived this setup where the black audience sitting in a barbershop would have somebody like Skip, who they view as kind of a stereotype kind of alien, and that they could direct their antagonism and go, "Oh my God, that he's so ridiculous," and relate to Stephen A, and vice versa. And that Stephen A would be this comic book version of blackness in the eyes of a white audience that had not had much exposure. Because Stephen A really is more of his own personality. He's not really the stereotype of blackness. If you really, if he were like a comedian, he has his own shtick.
Yeah.
But it's noisy, it's loud, it's demonstrative, it's absurd. It's got a little bit of swag, but it's self-deprecating, it's goofy. It's sort of reminds you of George Jefferson a little bit. Sort of.
A lot of George Jefferson.
So I think they set that up for people playing off of people's racial lack of familiarity and racial antagonism and kind of subliminal racial animus. And Stephen A has played that to a T, which is why some people refer to him as a coon. I just think he's super fucking harsh on black athletes in a way that has zero conscientiousness to it. He's full of shit when you're talking about as a black man. His thing with Kyrie, I think, is even more egregious than what he did to Kwame. And I think what he did to Kwame is like a cardinal sin in my book. I think that was really fucking foul. It was gross. It was a real abuse of the power of media. And I'm glad Kwame fought back and built his own brand. Fuck you. But the thing with Kyrie, probably even worse. So, fuck him.
And the vaccine, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I pull no punches anymore about being my opposition to the COVID jabs. That's not something I'm even remotely interested in keeping close to the vest at this point. I'm out front with that shit now.
Okay, let me back up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I don't deny that Stephen A. probably, you could argue that he's made some damage to black people. You could argue that question.
Or specific black people.
Specifically, for sure. I mean, I think especially the way he goes hard at people and has gone hard at people, not just black people, but people, period. Without a doubt, I can't deny any of that. But black people as in macro, I don't think that's true.
But compare Whitlock, Skip Bayless, and Stephen A. Who has done more harm? I would say Stephen A.
I'd say none of the above.
Yes, because you would say that these are the people in my daytime soaps for men world that I care too much about.
Yeah.
You're basically saying like I'm doing the same as reading adult comic books, but just
Yeah.
sports
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
That's what they are. I mean, look, I think that these are not important figures in Black culture.
Mm.
And
Even
yet,
Whitlock?
even Whitlock, I'd say that Whitlock, these are people. What Whitlock is trying to do is corner a new frontier. He's important to Black broadcasters more than he is Black, the larger Black culture. He's doing something that I haven't really seen before. You could argue Larry Elder was in that crowd, but even Larry Elder wasn't this. Larry Elder wasn't having basically a freaking rally, and you know, he wasn't.
We should have tried to go. We should have tried to go to cover that.
Hey, I'm sure there's going to be another one this year.
We got to go.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's certainly worth it.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'd love to see how it actually sounds, what it's actually like. To just the vibe of it would be very interesting to see. Like he's trying to create a Black Glenn Beck, and yes, he's part of the Blaze
No,
network.
but I know you're making that analogy based on more than just that.
Yes, it is trying to. One of the things that Glenn Beck has done since the late aughts is try to use his audience as sort of not just to contribute to good causes, quote unquote, whatever you think those are, but to use them as an activist base.
Yeah, mobilize them politically.
Yes. But in the case of Whitlock, he's not so much trying to mobilize them politically. It's more socially.
Mm-hmm.
It's more trying to spread his feelings about a biblical worldview and what it means to be a man, whatever. There's lots of definitions to that as well. Much like there's many shades of blackness, there's many shades of that. And when it comes to Black men in media, this is where the Stephen A. Whitlock kind of, corollary is interesting. Stephen A. is in many ways the standard bearer of what stuff was like. And obviously he's dominating now.
Mm-hmm.
Whitlock is trying to say then there's more.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Over here, when it comes to whether it's right-wing talk radio, there's not many Black faces in that world either. Or talk or right-wing podcasting, not many. There's a few. I think of Brandon Tatum. I don't know if
I know who it is. The Officer
one
Tatum.
example of this. Colian Noir is another
right
person in that world. Obviously,
are you talking about?
He was an NRA guy.
Right. No, Colin Noir's the NRA guy. I know, but are you talking about the Officer Tatum?
Yes. Yeah,
and
he now has a nightly talk show on radio.
Mm-hmm. There's several on YouTube as well. There are several, but yeah.
But it's not a herd.
Right.
And Whitlock could easily go that way.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, he's chosen this sort of middle way where he's focused on this social, family, religious goulash, which makes him unique. It also makes it hard. It also is distasteful. And I think getting back to one of your points you made earlier about, people taking shots at him, and so many different people. If you're Jamel Hill, if you're if you're Michael Smith, if you're
A
Dan
lot of people.
LeBatard, if you're people who don't share a lot of what he's preaching,
Hmm.
you're looking over there and like, what's wrong with this man? Like, why would he throw? Why would he throw it all away? Because I do believe, and I think there was a direct quote from a Fox Sports president that Jason Whitlock was well welcome back. Like they
Hmm.
wanted him back.
Right.
They didn't want to. They didn't want to jettison him.
So this whole idea that Stephen A. has always been leaning on, that Whitlock could failed. You and I have talked about this before. The dude would get another job offer. He's going to survive.
Yeah, it's harder
Period.
now. I think it's
No,
harder now,
but he is almost. He's had like 9 lives,
without a doubt. And
and
he's good at what he does.
yes, and it has
And
a
it's a rare bunch that are people, period. That's
right.
as good as he is at what he is, at provoking people that will provoke Stephen A. to rant at him for 2 hours.
Right.
I mean, it is. It takes. It's a level of skill at making an argument that I think that you gotta recognize. So I think it is tough, I think, for a guy like Stephen A. to accept that that's the truth of it.
Yes. So he has to keep saying, "Oh, I'm number one. I'm number one. I'm number one. I'm number one." He just sounds so
Yeah.
unconvincing, always telling himself that. Stephen A. just comes across as deeply insecure. I'm never convinced when he brags like that. It just sounds so empty. And the thing is, Whitlock has said this. Y'all can't understand that I fucking walked away
Yeah,
because I have different things that have value to me.
without a doubt.
Now, with his, and look, I don't mean to take shots at him either, because I have a ton of respect for him as a media force. Like I said, the guy is like indestructible. He's walked away from more jobs than you and I could dream of ever having. If
Or
you
been
think about it.
fired.
Yeah, well, right.
Both.
And then been
Right?
invited back.
Yeah. The ESPN thing example is hilarious.
I
The fact
mean,
that they would even bring him back, and then I don't know that he could come back a third time. I doubt it.
I really doubt it. But then they gave him the undefeated. I mean, that was
It was a prestige thing. Like, from what I remember at the time, it was reported that Stephen A. did want it, and that was part of their animus.
and it would not have been
Wilbon
the
wanted it too.
disaster. It wouldn't have been the disaster that I don't remember who it was who said it in this back and forth.
Mhm.
Maybe it was Jamel, maybe it was LeBatard who was like, "Oh my god," giving him the undefeated, or one of his episodes.
Mhm.
I think he was genuinely trying to look for a variety of voices. I think he asked Ta-Nehisi Coates, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did approach him.
So that, to me, that's interesting, because that's not what he's doing now. He's definitely stumping. He's found his he's found
found-
his genre, and he's
creating a genre.
but the thing is he basically creating his juggalo camp?
Yeah.
Is that basically?
And it's interesting how these threads tie together. All right, because how we were talking about LeBatard earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I said narrow and deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Juggalo camp was. That's what they're trying to create at Meadowlark.
Mm.
That's why Whitlock in the whole Blaze world is. That's what the Daily Wire world is. That's what the whole Outkick, in a broader Fox
So
News world.
Barstool
fits that world as well. Yeah, it's a narrow and deep. You're trying to have your Juggalo camp. Yeah, absolutely. That's what everybody's trying to do. That's what from the New York Times to
the James Brown Times.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to have I know the Fifth Column does this. I know Smoke 'em If You Got 'Em does this one as well. They do live
Retreats.
Zooms. They have Zooms
Oh, okay.
where they have a bunch of people, and they just one of the other shows I listen to is Counterflow
Okay.
with Buck Johnson. He's a libertarian dude. I wish he wouldn't talk so much about religion, but he does.
Hmm.
He talks too
Interesting.
much for me. He's Orthodox Christian, but
Wow.
I listen to his show. It's fascinating.
It's a
He has a lot
fascinating
of
combination.
but I love libertarian Orthodox Christian dude.
That is fascinating sounding.
And a lot of interesting guests, and I end up just listening, and I shout out to Buck Johnson. I listen to you all the time. But he does that as well, where instead of just putting everything out there, he's developed this small audience, and he is talking to them. They have these big Zooms where they all sit in a room. He'll bring in a guest, and it never sees the light of day.
It's a cottage industry, like I always compare it to a bakery, as you know. That's what I aspire to, is to have my clientele who come in for the cakes and pastries I make and rock with me. And what I love about this time period we're in is that there's something really wholesome about all of these people trying to create little communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I think there's a good naturedness to this that I really enjoy. And we would very much love you and I to both have that. And it's like, you're not just doing a job. You're not just like on radio, you were speaking out kind of into a void. Yeah, you would get calls, but there was this humongous gap between you and the audience. And now everyone's cultivating groups, pods.
Also, yeah, very much so. And for better or for worse, I think there's a larger societal discussion that I don't want to do now, but I could make about it. So I'll put a pin in that, and I'll dedicate a bunch of time to that one, because I want to articulate that clearly. I think that I think there's larger societal trends at play. We obviously had the COVID acceleration, but I'll put that aside for the moment. But
yeah, I just don't think it's all a diminishing return. I do think we're getting some returns, some great things back.
But I don't think it's diminishing returns. I would agree. We're getting a lot of great things back. I think we're getting some bad things back too. But I think it's, especially once advertisers, and there's lots of great news for podcasters and advertising that basically major media buyers are finally getting it. They're finally understanding that, hey, I can talk to people who talking about libertarian and Orthodox Christian issues.
I mean, what a focus group's target fucking advertising. It's like pre-made for you.
Yeah, right? Totally. Yeah, and that's what podcasts are. They're a predefined niche, right? People who want, if people who see this thumbnail, right, and they see I was wrong about the Peacock game, SI fires everyone, in GQ and Pitchfork, they know exactly the kind of world they're walking into.
Yeah, it's like an advertiser's dream. Other than we need the numbers, but I'm not gonna. Yeah. You've got decent numbers, but
not enough.
Right, but you're way ahead than me. So I was gonna say I'm not gonna impugn your numbers. Mine are a joke, but no, that's and basically, if we're gonna put a cap on this, the new media landscape is the rise of the juggalos.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
They were ahead of their time if you think about it.
They absolutely were.
Shit.
Yeah, that's another piece.